Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. On a quiet morning in mid-November, a heavy fog draped itself over the small coastal town of Cormorant Bay, creating an atmosphere that felt as though time had lost its significance. The scent of salt lingered in the air, mingling with the crispness of autumn leaves. It was a town where secrets thrived, hidden behind well-kept picket fences and the cheerful greetings of neighbors who rarely delved beyond small talk. But for Detective Sarah Jensen, the day would unravel in ways that disrupted the ordinary hum of life. The call came in just as she was pouring her second cup of coffee. An early morning jogger, a local teacher known for her vibrant personality, had been discovered on the damp shores. The tranquility shattered, replaced by the urgency of sirens and the smell of something foul that lingered beneath the surface. The crime scene was cordoned off, blue tape snapping in spite of the chilly breeze. Sarah stepped underneath the barrier, her senses sharpening as she spotted the silhouette of her partner, Officer Davis, who was already kneeling by a small figure on the ground. The young woman's lifeless body appeared out of place against the gray sands, her bright red running shoes starkly contrasting the muted colors around her. As the detective surveyed the scene, a weight settled in her gut. The victim's face was obscured by the cruel twist of destiny that had led her here. Witnesses were scarce, and the whispers of a sleepy town burgeoned into the chaos of speculation. In a place where everyone knew each other, the fear of the unknown crept in, thickening the air. Sarah knew this was only the beginning, and that somewhere within the fog, the truth awaited her shadowed grasp. Shrouded like the victim's last moment. What secrets lay hidden in Cormorant Bay? The hunt for answers had officially begun. The victim. The victim's name was Emily Grace, a beloved member of the community whose presence seemed to light up any room. Just 32 years old, she was known for her infectious laughter and dedication to her students at Cormorant Bay High School. News of her death spread like wildfire, leaving devastation in its wake. Friends and colleagues gathered in hushed whispers, struggling to make sense of the tragedy that had befallen one of their own. Detective Sarah Jensen dug deeper into Emily's life as she reviewed the file given to her by Officer Dick. A snapshot of a smiling Emily arms draped around students in a schoolyard caught her eye. It did a vivid picture of a woman who had seemingly led an idyllic life. A supportive family, a close-knit group of friends, and a growing passion for running that had taken her to local fights every season. Yet, beneath the surface of this perfect facade, cracks began to emerge. Friends recounted that Emily had been more withdrawn lately. Her vibrant spirit dimmed. It wasn't unusual for any of them to notice such changes, but they struggled to pinpoint why. A particularly close friend mentioned that Emily had confided in her about feeling overwhelmed, a secret she had taken to her grave. Possible relationship issues? Job stress? The reasons were surface level, intangible threads waiting to be unraveled as Sarah flipped through more photograph-shabby moments layered alongside a growing shadow of uncertainty. Character references painted a mixed portrait of the woman who lay cold on the beach. For every anecdote of joy, there seemed to be hints of emotional turmoil. Just as Sarah began to feel the weight of those contradictions, a local barista approached her, clutching her arm, her eyes glassy and desperate. I saw her yesterday. She came in for coffee. She seemed different. I think something was bothering her. The barista breathed, glancing nervously toward the buzzing crowd of investigators. That single moment would mark a turning point in Sarah's investigation. It was clear Emily had not just been a victim to fate. Her story was steeped in complexities yet to be discovered. With a vast network of people affected by her death, each of their threads would have to be followed, however tangled they may be. The fog of Cormorant Bay clung tightly, but hidden under its veil were answers that begged to be found. The crime scene. The sun peeked through the dissipating fog, illuminating a pristine shoreline where only hours ago chaos had reigned. Detective Sarah Jensen crouched low, scrutinizing the ground where Emily's body had lain. The sand was disturbed, small footprints trailing toward the water's edge, a fleeting reminder of the life that had been there moments before the fatal encounter. She could still feel the electric charge of the scene, as if the echoes of the events whispered for justice. Investigators collected evidence meticulously, their movements deliberate against the backdrop of anxious chatter from onlookers, a mix of horrified curiosity and morbid fascination. Sarah's trained eyes captured the details. A small silver bracelet glimmered in the sunlight, half buried in the sand. She reached down, brushing off the particles. It was engraved with the initials EG, and the charms jingled softly as she turned it over, envisioning the moments it had adorned Emily's wrist. Beside her, Officer Davis snapped photos, capturing the scene from multiple angles. No signs of struggle in the sand, he remarked, scanning the area for any hints of a confrontation. The lack of blood suggests it didn't happen here. Could have been moved. The realization sent a chill coursing through Sarah. The implication that Emily may have been assaulted or killed elsewhere meant the investigation would extend beyond the beach. It also raised the unsettling possibility that someone she knew had unleashed violence upon her. Suddenly, a local fisherman, his face weathered and grizzled, approached. "Detective, I saw a car earlier, just down the road. A woman." She looked upset. "Figured I'd pass it along," he offered, his voice shaky yet resolute. "Do you remember anything about the car? Color?" "Lost. With jotting notes. That's all I know," he replied, glancing nervously at the gathering crowd. "I didn't think much of it until now." Another thread woven into the fabric of Emily's last hour. The fog rolled back in, enveloping the shoreline once more, echoing the murky details of the investigation. Sarah stood, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. There was a race against time, and a killer lurking just beyond the horizon. Every lead mattered, and in a town gripped by fear, she needed to unearth the truth hidden beneath layers of uncertainty. The early investigation. The air was thick with tension as Detective Sarah Jensen returned to the precinct. The weight of Emily Grace's death palpable in the silence that filled the station. Officers shuffled paperwork. Phones buzzed with urgent calls, but the entire department felt like a contained storm. Emily's image, frozen in time on a bulletin board, served as a grim reminder of their task ahead. Surrounded by her team, Sarah gathered them for a briefing. The scent of burnt coffee hung heavy in the air as she pointed to the photos of the crime scene projected on a screen. We need to comb through Emily's recent contacts, social media, everything. There's a reason she was at the beach alone that morning, she urged, her heart racing with anticipation for answers. Officer Davis leaned forward, eyeing the screen with concern. We should look into her personal life. The barista mentioned she seemed troubled lately. Maybe a breakup or issues with a colleague. As his words lingered, Sarah's mind drifted to the earlier conversation with the fisherman. The dark blue sedan that could open a crucial door. Let's pull the traffic cameras from the bridge and along the main road, she instructed. We need to identify that car and see if it ties back to anyone Emily knew. Hours later, the team sifted through digital records, scanning for familiarity among strangers. Friends and acquaintances created a tangled web as they unearthed connections linking Emily to people from her past. There was Jenna, her college roommate, whose long-distance friendship had soured over a budded relationship. And Aaron, a fellow teacher whose lingering affection had always seemed to straddle the line of friendship. His text messages to Emily revealed undeniable tension, marked by jealousy and frustration. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the precinct, a sudden ping from Officer Davis's desk broke the relentless rhythm of the day. The dashcam footage from the bridge had arrived. Sarah gathered her team around, the glow of the screen illuminating their faces. Here, Davis said, pausing the footage as a dark blue sedan came into view, neatly pulling into the parking lot, just moments before Emily had set foot on the beach. A collective breath was held before Sarah broke the silence. Let's find out who owns that car. The urgency charged through her. With each fragment of information, the reasons behind Emily's solitude began to crystallize. The investigation was in its infancy, but the anticipation of connecting the dots transformed the air, thick with the promise of discovery. Tonight, they would draw closer to unveiling the truth hidden in the shadows of Cormorant Bay. The dead ends, as the days turned into a blur of relentless pacing and late-night brainstorming sessions. The small town of Cormorant Bay seemingly held its breath, waiting for justice to be served. Detective Sarah Jensen found herself drowning in a sea of leads, each one leading to another dead end. The urgency of the investigation was palpable, yet with every passing hour, the truth remained elusive. The dark blue sedan belonged to a man named Frank Harrington, a local mechanic with a seemingly mundane existence. The team conducted a thorough background check, only to find that Frank had an airtight alibi for the morning of Emily's death. He was at the shop attending to a flock of customers, confirmed by several eyewitnesses. Even more perplexing was his demeanor. He professed to have never met Emily, and his astonished gaze indicated he wasn't hiding anything. Determined not to be deterred, Sarah turned her focus to Jenna, Emily's college roommate. The two hadn't spoken in years, but when contacted, Jenna revealed that she had recently reached out to Emily, concerned about her struggles. She mentioned feeling like she was being followed. Jenna relayed, her voice laced with concern, over a distance that felt insurmountable. I thought she was joking, but there was fear in her eyes. I should have taken her seriously. Armed with this new information, Sarah pressed onward. However, Searching through past acquaintances revealed little else. While every friend and colleague acknowledged Emily's recent unease, no one could provide a definitive answer about who or what was causing it. The case felt suffocatingly circular, conversations becoming rehearsed and monotonous. As Sarah sifted through Emily's social media, caught up in the sweeping nostalgia of her vibrant life, she noted a sudden change. The last few weeks of her posts were darker, punctuated by cryptic comments about feeling lost and a desire for escape. It was as if a curtain had been drawn, obscuring the joyous exterior. Finally, a breakthrough emerged. A friend mentioned seeing Emily in the company of a man she didn't recognize at the local bar just days before her death. Driven by desperation, Sarah chased the lead, but her hopes were dashed once again. The bartender recalled the encounter, but the man had vanished without a trace, leaving only vague descriptions and an empty glass behind. Days turned to nights, and each morning felt heavier than the last. The investigation felt like a colossal jigsaw puzzle where pieces were missing, the picture distorted. Sarah stood before the wall of clues and images back at the precinct, the faces of the townspeople staring back at her. Somewhere among them, there had to be a connection, a moment that would bring clarity. But for now, she would have to sit with the unyielding frustration of unanswered questions as the rain began to patter softly against the windows, echoing the shadows of doubt that lingered. A break in the case midweek brought with it an unexpected shift in the gloomy atmosphere shrouding the precinct. Detective Sarah Jensen arrived early, her coffee cooling untouched beside her as she immersed herself in the burgeoning pile of witness statements. Just as the doubt began to darken her thoughts, the ringing of the office phone shattered the silence. Detective Jensen, a voice crackled through the receiver. It was Officer Davis. You need to get down to the station. We've got something. The urgency of his tone ignited a flicker of hope within her, the kind that had felt distant for far too long. She hastily made her way to the precinct, where the low buzz of activity suddenly surged as she entered. A noise of animated chatter filled the air, culminating around Davis, who stood with a debriefing file in hand. I just got off the phone with the lab, he began, his expression tense yet electrifyingly hopeful. Remember that bracelet we found at the crime scene? They ran the engraving, and it's linked to a family-owned jewelry store in town. We have a lead on who bought it. With the adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah listened intently as Davis continued. The store owner remembers the purchase was made by a J. Rhodes, known for being a bit reclusive, but she's been in several times. Last week was when she bought it. Could be a coincidence, but it's worth looking into. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah nodded in appreciation, the pieces of the puzzle feeling like they were finally aligning. Let's not waste any time. Get all available info on J. Rhodes. We'll head to the jewelry store and see if they can provide more context, like whether she was with anyone when she made the purchase. Moments later, they arrived at the quaint jewelry store just as the morning sunlight punctured the lingering clouds. The air smelled sweet with hints of polished wood and metal, a far cry from the murky undertones of investigation. Marlene, the store owner, greeted them with a polite smile, quickly morphing into concern when Sarah showed her a photo of Emily's bracelet. I remember her. She was here just a week ago, very excited to get this for her friend. She seemed anxious. Anxious? Sarah pressed. Did she mention who she was buying it for? Yes, she did. Someone special, the woman murmured, looking thoughtful as she leaned closer. But She never actually named the person, just kept saying she wanted to surprise them. A rush of possibilities flooded Sarah's mind. The tension of the investigation began to exponentially sharpen against the clarity of this new connection. "Could you take us to your security footage from that day?" As Marlene led them to the small back room, Sarah's heart thudded in her chest. She had sensed it, a rising tide of clarity that broke against the uncertainty. It was time to find out who had been in Emily's life during her troubling final moments, and who precisely deserved closer scrutiny. As the tape whirred to life on the screen, the flickering, grainy figures danced into view. Sarah held her breath, determined to reclaim control over the case that had left her feeling so adrift. The suspect. The grainy video flickered as Sarah Jensen leaned forward, her focus trained on the screen. A footage from the jewelry store hummed with the delicate ding of a bell as the door swung open. Emily appeared, her familiar smile lighting up the screen just days before her death. Strolling confidently toward the counter, she greeted Marlene with bright enthusiasm that starkly contrasted with the haunting image Sarah had seen on the beach. As the video played on, a shadow moved into the frame. An unfamiliar figure leaned against the doorframe, watching intently as Emily interacted with Marlene. The man had short hair and a fitted jacket. There wasn't much else discernible in the poor lighting, but Sarah's instincts flared. There was an energy around him that caught her attention, igniting a sense of unease that coursed through her. "Can you zoom in on him?" she instructed Officer Davis, who immediately obliged, adjusting the image to capture more detail. Minutes seemed to stretch infinitely as curiosity turned to lingering dread. The resolution sharpened ever so slightly, and the man's features became clearer. Dark eyes roamed the store, expressions shifting from passive observation to something more rife with interest as Emily moved about her shopping. Looks like he's been following her," Davis mused, his brow furrowed with concern. "Should we have a name?" "We need to find that out now," Sarah replied, her determination returning to a boiling point. This man seemed too close to the storyline's transformed excitement in Emily's demeanor, dwindling as he lingered. The visceral sense of dread, suggestive of something darker, lurking beneath the surface. Marlene, who stood watch, hesitated. "I might have seen him in the bar with her. He's a younger guy, always seemed off, but I didn't think much of it." The answer sent a ripple through Sarah. "We need to track him down. Davis, check the local bar's security footage as well. See if he's a regular. The bartender may know something about him. Perhaps he was seen with Emily last week." With a presence of urgency, the team moved quickly through the precinct, a palpable energy igniting the air. As footage from the bar flickered to life, Sarah's heart raced, every frame holding the key to the mystery. Suddenly, a familiar figure stepped into view, leaning against the bar. The same piercing gaze, fixated not just on Emily in the video, but pointedly penetrating the atmosphere of the establishment. Sarah recognized him. He was an office worker who occasionally came in for happy hour. Her gut churned. The pleasant mask he wore obscured the potential for malice. "His name is Jake Lawson," Davis noted, leaning closer to the screen. "According to the bar's registry, he's been coming around a lot recently. Ran into a few people from school, Emily included. Drinks tend to get tense around." The pieces of a dark narrative threaded tighter together. Sarah felt the familiar adrenaline sharpen her senses. They had a name, a potential suspect. With this man anchored in Emily's last days, they were heading into dangerous territory, but the path toward closure was slowly becoming illuminated. Sarah's resolve solidified as she prepared to confront Jake Lawson, uncertain of what awaited her, but determined to uncover the cold, hard truth lying behind the veil of his seemingly normal life. The trial. The courtroom buzzed with barely contained tension as the trial of Jake Lawson commenced, the air thick with anticipation and the pervasive weight of loss. A mosaic of concerned faces filled the gallery, friends and family of Emily Grace, their expressions reflecting the sense of justice desperately sought in the wake of tragedy. Hushed whispers flared in the corners as they awaited a verdict that would either deepen their wounds or begin to heal them. Dressed in a tailored dark suit, Jake sat stoic, his demeanor carefully crafted and immaculate in an attempt to conceal the darkness that had manifested during the haunting months following Emily's death. As the jury was seated, Sarah Jensen felt a daunting weight settle over her, the culmination of months filled with investigation, fragmentary revelations, and a quest for the truth. The prosecutor, a seasoned attorney named Laura Chang, presented the case with conviction. 2 days prior to Emily Grace's death, evidence shows that she visited a local jewelry store, where she was observed with the defendant, Jake Lawson. Witnesses testify to unsettling interactions between them, and footage captured inside the store highlights his presence during a crucial moment in her unfortunate saga. As each piece of evidence was laid bare, the atmosphere shifted, absorbing the testimony with an urgency that reverberated throughout the room. Sarah took careful notes as Laura laid out the timeline, how Emily's cheerful facade had masked deeper struggles, and how moments of intimacy morphed into a source of manipulation in the hands of Jake. But the real test came as defense attorney Thomas Bach stepped forward. A man of imposing stature, he began to dismantle the prosecution's case with the precision of a surgeon. What we know about Emily Grace is that she battled with personal demons. Her mental state was precarious. Jake Lawson did not, I repeat, did not act maliciously. The relationship between them, while complex, was not a cause of murder. As he spun the narrative, details of Emily's life surfaced. Her fragile emotional state expressed anxiety about misunderstandings and insecurities. Sarah's stomach twisted with frustration. This was an attempt to shift the blame defiantly onto Emily, to paint Jake as an innocent bystander in a tragic train wreck of fate. In a pause that felt like eternity, Jake took the stand. The before and after contrast was striking. On the surface, he appeared composed, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes as he recounted his version of events, a story that placed him as a misunderstood friend attempting to help a troubled soul. Sarah felt the injustice radiate through. His words dripped with embellishment, a thinly veiled attempt at portraying himself as the heartbroken companion. As the trial progressed day by day, tension continued to mount. Emily's friends and family told their stories, their pain weaving an emotional tapestry that the jury couldn't possibly ignore. When Sarah herself stepped onto the witness stand, her testimony was resolute and unwavering. She recounted the evidence found, including the bracelet, the chilling connection to Jake, and the instinctual dread as Emily's personal struggles were unveiled through her investigation. Closing arguments arrived with the heaviness of a storm about to break. Laura's voice echoed through the courtroom as she challenged the jury to see beyond Jake's facade plea for justice, where Emily's truth needed to be acknowledged. Sometimes, closure must be born from the shadows that linger, and we must offer Emily the voice she has lost. As deliberations began, Sarah took a deep breath, waiting with bated breath alongside the gallery. In that suspended moment, there was hope. Hope that the jury would not just seek justice for Emily, but would also acknowledge the complexity of her life, deserving clarity and respect. The fate of a killer lay in their hands, and as the pounding seconds ticked by, the pain of the past wrapped around them, a relentless reminder that truth, however uncomfortable, demanded illumination. The aftermath. The gavel echoed sharply, reverberating through the silence of the courtroom, marking a defining moment in Cormorant Bay. The jury delivered their verdict, a resounding guilty and affirmation of justice that flooded the room with mixed emotions. Sarah Jensen stood firm, absorbing the rush of relief and sorrow. The air felt heavy, almost electric, as friends of Emily clutched each other in a blend of hope and loss. No matter the outcome, the void left by her absence would linger, an indelible mark on their lives. As Jake Lawson was led away in handcuffs, a sense of closure settled over the courtroom, a closure mingled with the weight of grief. Emily Grace had been taken too soon. The raw pain wasn't diluted in the aftermath. It simply transformed into a collective resolve to honor her memory. In the following weeks, Sarah watched the community wrestle with their emotions. Candlelight vigils dotted the beach where Emily had been found, bright flickering flames illuminating the memories of a vibrant life. Sarah attended, standing amidst a sea of familiar faces, the smell of ocean air mixing with the scent of burning candles and flowers. Each flicker of light echoed with whispered promises of remembrance, of a life that deserved to be celebrated, even in tragedy. Emily's family held a small memorial service that felt saturated with bittersweet tales. They spoke of her love for teaching, her passion for running, and the ways she would uplift anyone around her with her smile. Each story was a thread in the tapestry of Emily's life, weaving together the moments that had defined her spirit. But the aftermath for Sarah was more complex. While justice had been served, the underlying wounds of betrayal, loss, and vulnerability echoed deeply within her psyche. The investigation had revealed how one person's darkness could unfurl and envelop another's light. It ignited questions within her about the fragility of trust, the shadows that lurk behind familiar faces, and the consequences of ignoring internal fears. In the solitude of her office, Sarah began to reflect on her own life outside the case. The evening sky darkened as she gazed out of the precinct window, lost in thought. She realized the toll of the investigation had marked her, entwining itself with the fabric of her being. Could someone she knew so well, seen as a friend, harbor secrets that could turn to violence? Those thoughts weighed heavily as she leaned away from her work for moments of respite. Despite the turmoil, there was comfort in recognizing the resilience of the human spirit. In the face of darkness, the community had banded together to support one another, to stand as a testament to the life Emily had led and the light she still radiated in their hearts. With time, Sarah knew that healing would come, albeit slowly, as she channeled the experience into ensuring that no other family would have to endure such a tragedy again. She was empowered, a dedicated officer, a guardian of the village who would fight for the lost voices that craved justice. And as she prepared for whatever the future might hold, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to honor Emily and all that had been lost, one case at a time. Reflection. As the dust of the trial settled, Detective Sarah Jensen found herself enveloped in an unexpected stillness. The cacophony of emotions surrounding Emily's case had left an indelible mark. And now, as she walked through a quiet park in Cormorant Bay, the hum of the world seemed muted, reflective. The vibrancy of autumn, with leaves painted in hues of gold and crimson, reminded her of the beauty that once radiated from Emily Grace, a stark contrast to the darkness that had taken her life. In solitude, Sarah slipped onto a bench overlooking the water, thoughts meandering to all the moments that had led to this bittersweet conclusion. Each piece of evidence uncovered in a rush became more than just elements of a case. They were fragments of a human story, a narrative that reminded her how fragile life is and how vital it was to listen to those who reach out for help. However, quietly, nearby children played, their laughter filling the air, weaving renewed hope into the fabric of the community. For them, Emily existed as a memory, a symbol of the love that could emerge from even the most tragic circumstance. Sarah's heart tightened at the realization that this collective grief would eventually morph into a collective commitment to protect one another, to recognize the signs of distress, and to pursue every avenue for healing. Determined not to let Emily's death be merely a footnote in the annals of their lives, Sarah crafted a plan to establish a community initiative to help students like Emma Lithos who struggled in silence. Through outreach programs and open dialogues about mental health, she aspired to break the stigmas surrounding emotional struggles, honoring Emily's memory in the process. As Sarah rose from the bench, her sanctuary in the park rejuvenated her resolve. She would carry the lessons learned from this investigation into her future endeavors, not only as a detective, but as a human being wanting to make a difference. Emily's light would never truly dim. It would live on in the connections forged, the lives touched, and the hope ignited in the hearts of those who chose to remember her.